Hey guys, my name is Attorney Walter, if not the third. A lot of you already know who I am. I've made over 3,000 videos there on YouTube, and I'm a practicing Social Security disability attorney through Disability Resolution PA, and I have a nonprofit that's coming out, which will be the first open source constitution for people to write in their rights and freedoms that they believe they should have, and then a group of attorneys will review them and basically assist with creating bills and teaching you guys how to make bills as well that can ultimately become law. That is spaceconstitution.com. I'm waiting for the 501c3 nonprofit certification, but I may just launch it early and get the party started. All right, let's get right to this. When will the fourth stimulus be? And I'm doing these videos because I see a lot of these videos, clickbait, tag titles, all these, hey, Biden did it. Checks in the mail. Here we go. It was the same crap that I saw when it came to the $200 increase for Social Security benefits. I was the first one to debunk that out of all of the people on the web. I was the first person to go through and correct the record that they're not focusing on that. They're focusing on improving Social Security benefits with a 125% increase above the poverty line by using a modified Social Security 2100 Act. But that's not what we're focusing on. Let's get right to the fourth stimulus. Here we go. When will the fourth stimulus be? So I've got my little thing here to go through the basics. I know most of you guys are focused specifically on when you're going to be getting the stimulus checks and things like that, but this video is all about when's the next stimulus going to be. So let's get right to it. All right, so my style is a little bit different. I tend to like to go based upon how political facts are interacting with things, what the legal background of this whole thing is going to be. So my first thing that I want to talk about is the history, and we're going to do about a minute of that, and then we're going to go into specifically a metric on gauging how far off this fourth stimulus will likely be based upon the first, second, and third stimuluses that were received. First thing you need to know, the $1,200 first dollar check was essentially put out there, able to be received by people on 3/17/20, okay? The second 600 check was released on 1/4/21. So there was about a 9-month, 18-day later period in which, it took to go from check number one, stimulus check number one, to stimulus check number two. 1,200, 600 took about 9 months and 18 days. The third stimulus check was about $1,400, released on 3/31/21. Now, that's very different. Why? Because essentially, instead of it taking 9.5 months, it took around only 3 months to get from the second stimulus check to the third stimulus check. Okay. Now, as you know, it is 3/31/21. If we look at 3 months later, right, we go to 3 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7. That puts us right around 7/21, or if we do it by this, erase a couple of days, right around 7/15 to 7/20. Now, the idea here is that would be in the same repetitive cycle of the second check to the third check. Okay, but that's not definitive, that's not objective, that's just a basic metric. Okay. Now, we know that there's a time lapse here, so we know that with the first check to the second check, the 9.5-month wait period, they had to figure out, all right, well, how do we write the legislation for this? Okay, how do we go ahead and distribute these checks? Okay, how do we create the list of who's supposed to receive them? How do we give them to people who don't have bank accounts? How do we direct deposit them? How do we set all this stuff up to interact and create and go ahead and actually work? So they had to work the kinks out, right? And they were still working the kinks out of who's going to be paid at the government to do what, even with the third stimulus check, right? But now they've got it down. They've got it down. So with the whole argument situation here, you should not be using startup, scheduling, debugging. None of that stuff should be a major portion of your analytical thinking when it comes to how long it will take to get a fourth stimulus. Okay, so let's go to the next thing real quick. So we know that basically time lapse between the second and third checks were 2.5 months, 2 months, 27 days. So what you need to know is that essentially the first check to the second check took 293 days. The second check to the third check only took 86 days. Okay. Now let's keep scrolling and go through a few more details here. We know that essentially they can't pass this when they're on break. So now we have to look at, okay, so we know that metric-wise, timeline-wise, based upon prior, releases, it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle of July, right? Based on the second check to the third check to the fourth check, somewhere in the middle of July. 15th, July 20th, etc. Now we look at specifically when they can pass it, because they can't just pass it at any time. They have to be in session. So let's talk about that real quick. You need to understand that when it comes to passing bills, the Senate has to be in session, and they take very large areas of time off for the holidays. So let's talk about basically July 4th. July 4th is coming up, and that's going to be a highly politicized event because obviously the Republicans are rah, rah, rah patriotism, and the Democrats are not so much that. And what that means is that basically the Democrats are going to want to, because they're in power, reduce the patriotism, the pride that comes with Republicans. And, let's be honest, during July 4th, the Republicans, they go up in favorability. They go up in the ranks of people liking them. It's just kind of a Republican-oriented holiday. And then on the other side, you have Democrats. And that's not really, the pride of the nation isn't really their push, push, push. So what that comes down to for that particular holiday, you have a situation where the Republicans are going to be doing really well pretty soon because we're, what is today? Today is June 10th, 2021. So that means in, around a month from now, the Republicans are going to be boosted. Democrats don't want that. The Democrats do not want the Republicans to have boosted patriotism. So what the Democrats will likely do is before the Senate is out for July 4th, and just to let you know how that works, the Senate will not be meeting from June 28th to July 9th. So June 28th to July 9th, in the middle is July 4th. They will not be in session, which is a 14-day long holiday, which is ridiculous. But hey, why not? And of course, they're not just a holiday then. They read bills, they respond to things, like yada, yada, yada. But they're not in session during that point. And yes, they do take very, very long holidays. So the bottom line here is this. What you've got is essentially June 28th to July 9th. They're not in session, which means that what the Democrats will likely do to go ahead and try and make the Republicans look bad is they'll go ahead and start working again with the Republicans or some third-party group, right, to act as some quasi-mediator, and they'll get close and close and close to passing it, and then boom, right before June 28th, it'll die. And the whole point of that is to make the Republicans look like they were the ones who essentially killed the people, the American people, having more money for the holiday, having more money for a vacation, etc. So what does this mean? It means that we're almost certain that we won't be seeing a passed bill before July 4th. The reason why is it'll be before June 28th that the Democrats will really make the Republicans look bad because they don't want the Republicans to get a significant boost during July 4th during that pride situation for patriotism. Let's keep rolling. So what that means is that we're likely to see the the Democrats go ahead and pass that bill, that stimulus, the fourth stimulus, after July 9th. Well, when after July 9th? Well, keep in mind that you have July 4th and then you have Labor Day. Now, if you go ahead and have that stimulus, the fourth stimulus, pass after Labor Day, you've got a problem. A lot of red states have begun to recover, and they're recovering in a big way. A lot of the blue states are obviously lagging because of a different strategy, less capitalism-oriented, less business-oriented states, and things like that. Taxes are higher in blue states. It takes a lot longer for companies to ramp up, and they're more restricted. Red states, there's hardly any restrictions compared to the red states. They're able to go ahead and make business work faster. That's their whole selling line. Okay. But what that means in a COVID, in a pandemic sense, is that the red states are going to go ahead and recover much faster. But President Biden is not promoting to the red states. He is promoting to the blue states. And so what will happen is we have to look at this scale, right? July 4th, Labor Day. We have to look at this scale and see where enough states have become sufficiently recovered to no longer need a stimulus, right? Because if they're all recovered, then he's just going to look bad with releasing a stimulus, because then the states don't need the stimulus, and all of a sudden we're paying people that might not need it as much as you might think. As a result of that, he's not going to get the need from people. Like, people aren't going to be like needing this check. They're not going to be extremely relying on this check. And without them extremely relying on this check, they're not going to be really impressed when he passes it, right? Because that's how you go ahead. The person that really has low expectations of not receiving it, but they really need it, and then they get an expectation of receiving it, and he's the champion who gave it to them, that's what he's trying to recreate here. So what that equates to is you've got, well, I assume that's what he's trying to create. So what you've got here is a situation of July 4th versus Labor Day. And so if you go ahead and release the stimulus after Labor Day, you're going to have basically too many states already recovering at a very high level. So here's the problem too. The red states are going to recover much faster. So Texas and Florida have already recovered significantly. It's almost like COVID just didn't exist here for the most part. So what happened now is you've got to look at this and say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't look good for President Biden. He's got to get California and New York, your two keystones for the Democratic Party, to go ahead and recover and be very close on the heels of Texas and Florida. So what you'll probably be seeing is that he will go ahead and put massive spending bills of taxpayer dollars into the fourth stimulus in July, in between July 4th and Labor Day, somewhere around the 15th to the 20th. And what he'll do is he will basically take taxpayers' funds and he will superfund New York and he will superfund California. That way, after Labor Day, those blue states will be able to much more quickly catch up to those red states, right? The red states didn't need it, but the blue states did. He'll mega fund those through the mega funds. Those blue states will get to catch up. And then after Labor Day, President Biden will be able to say, look at the blue states. Look at that. Look at California's doing amazing. Look at New York is doing amazing, etc. Now, you've got to consider with all this, right? If we kind of summarize this thing down, how's this working, etc., there's things that you have to kind of keep in mind. And President Biden and the people that are around him, they are de facto chess players. So let's just review, summarize what we've gone over so far. Number one, he's got to go ahead and make the fourth stimulus count to the people. So when he actually passes it, people have to have a need for it. They have to need it, desire it, want it. They want to have it. They got to have that so that they look at him and say, wow, what a great man. He's also got to make the Republican Party look bad, which means that, and I'm assuming that, but you know how politics are. You know how this always goes. You look at all the channels and things like that. You know, when the Republican president is, the Democrats screw everything up. When the Democratic president and the Republicans won't let anything pass. That's how it always is. So what's happening is, you know that he's going to try a stunt where they just can't work it out before essentially June 28th, which ruins July 4th with people having it, but the people still have the expectation. That way the patriot pride for the Republicans is lower, right? They don't get a boost like they normally do over July 4th. Now with that said, keeping in mind, if he sets the fourth stimulus after Labor Day, less states are going to need it. So he's going to pass it somewhere in the middle around July. And when he passes it in the middle of July, that will allow him to mega spend towards California, New York, and other blue states because they're the ones that are going to have the need. And then he'll go ahead and get them to recover quickly because he will hyperspend. And then, of course, the red states won't be able to have that. And then he'll be able to show some red states recovering faster, or some blue states recovering faster than red states because the blue states recovered or had mega funding from the government as part of the fourth stimulus. So where is he going to go ahead? When is he going to go ahead and do it? It's probably going to be around July 15th and July 20th, somewhere in between there. It makes the Republicans look bad. It gets people excited. They still need the money, and he can use it to boost the blue states. So that's when you're likely to see essentially the fourth stimulus coming out. All right. My name is Attorney Walter, if not the third. I'm with Disability Resolution PA. If this video helped you, like it, subscribe, things like that. I'm trying to be very neutral about these things to help you guys understand, but we all know politics are not neutral. Politics, it's a two-party system in this country. So just keep your mind open when you watch these videos because I'm not giving you a pro-Republican or pro-Democrat kind of platform. I'm giving you both parties are going to play games and here's how they're going to do it. And you'll see from my prior videos, I take on Trump and I take on Biden. All right, my name is Attorney Walter, if not the third. Have a wonderful day and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.